I don't ever want to give up my peace of mind just to give somebody else a piece of my mind.
Oof.
Oh, that's so good, TK.
Yeah, don't hand me your misery and expect me to turn it into joy for you. One more talk aboutable for you, TK. This is the root of your unhappiness.
Unhappiness is when your expectations of how life is meant to be going go unmet. And this explains why a kid in Africa who gets rice, I was born in Africa, I was born in Botswana, a kid in Africa who gets rice can be euphoric. But a billionaire in a Michelin star restaurant in West London, his 3 Michelin star steak comes without the sprinkle of dust or whatever you put on it. He will be visibly pissed off and complain because his expectations of the world and how life should be going go unmet. So one of the ways that you can make sure you're happy, it's not Lamborghinis, it's just like having better expectations, reasonable, realistic ones. And this applies for relationships. If you have healthier expectations of your partner, you will have a better relationship. If you have unreasonable expectations of their perfection when you are flawed yourself, you should expect to have a really miserable relationship. They will never meet the expectation. Expectation is the curse of happiness.
If you want to be happy, don't just have reasonable expectations, though. Limit your expectations. Eliminate the unnecessary expectations. Don't lower your standards, but eliminate any expectation that isn't serving you and is getting in the way of your happiness.
That's right. And an expectation is different from a standard. An expectation is an assumption I have about what you would or should do. And that tends to get us in a whole lot of trouble. A standard, on the other hand, is a value that I have, and I choose to enter into agreements with other people in a way that respects and honors those values, right? So we don't have a mere expectation that everyone's going to be at the studio at a certain time. We have an agreement about that based on a common value that we share. But without that agreement, it would just be an assumption. And you see this a lot, not just in terms of like what we eat or material possessions, but where it really kills us is in our relationships. We have so many expectations based on what a person would do or should do if they really loved us. If you really loved me, you would do this. If you really loved me, you would have said it that way, or you would have never forgot that. And we talked about trauma earlier. It's like there are 1,000,000,001 reasons for why a person can really love you and wouldn't do the very thing that you would expect them to do. What if they have an addiction? What if they have weaknesses you don't know about? What if they've been traumatized? You know, like you don't know all the different, like what if they have a physical disability? What if they have a mental disorder? We don't know all the different things that affect what people do. And so if you can let go of those expectations and say, all I'm going to deal with is agreements. Whatever expectations I have, I'm going to make them known and see if I can work together with that other person to transform that into an agreement. And if we can get an agreement out of it, we have a peaceful arrangement. On the other hand, if it's just an expectation, I'm not going to let that get me into trouble. That's a recipe for misery.
That's the insidious side of our expectations too. Quite often our expectations go unstated, and then we make ourselves miserable, or we make the people around us miserable because you didn't meet the expectation that I never stated in the first place. Imagine if I had an expectation, Mallory gets here every day at like 8 a.m., but imagine if my secret expectation that she should be here at 6:30 a.m.
Joke's on you, I was here at 6:30 this morning.
Because I secretly expected that you would want that of me.
Thanks for finally meeting my expectations, Mallory.
You're welcome.
But that's the thing, like, and no one would get anything from that. Now she got here really early. She thought she got here early, but she merely met my expectation. How is anyone going to meet your expectation unless you form an agreement with them? But in order to form that agreement with them, you have to state what the expectation is. And by stating that expectation, quite often you realize how absurd the expectation is. That why do I even have this expectation of someone else? Oh, it's because of the story I'm telling myself about what they should do for me. What is going to benefit me the most? Not us, not you, not our relationship, not our community, but how can you benefit me? Well, what else does that? A parasite does that. And so A parasite has an expectation. I'm going to take and take and take and never give. I'm going to make you sick with all of my taking. I don't have to give anything. That's what expectations do. Parasites don't have standards. They merely have expectations. I'm going to extract whatever I can from the host. I'm going to get what I can until I can't get anymore. Professor Sean, what's this gentleman's name in the clip?
Oh, Danny, do you remember?
Oh, I know this one. It's Stephen Bartlett.
Okay,
Thank you.
Stephen Bartlett. So I loved what he was talking about earlier. Like the person at the Michelin star restaurant with an expectation can be absolutely miserable. I saw this last night during the Sigur Rós concert. Now, I surprised my wife with second row seats. And they were expensive. I couldn't afford the first row seats, actually. And so they were several $100s for these second row seats. And there was a woman who was in front of us, sort of catty corner, within 10 feet of me. And she was sitting there just scowling and yawning. And she seemed so frustrated that she was in the front row, but she clearly wasn't center front row. She was slightly askew. And so it wasn't as perfect as her expectation was. But Bex went into it with no expectation. She knew we were going to a concert. And then she found out it was Sigur Rós. Oh my gosh, this is so amazing. I didn't have this expectation. And then we get there and they start walking us to the seat. And it's like, oh wow, we're down in the lower section? Wow, how great is this? Oh wait, we're not even there. Wait, we're in the pit? And then we go to the second row? We're seated there in the second row? She had no expectation for all of this. And all of a sudden, where we were amplified her happiness. But if she had the expectation the woman in the row right in front of us had, something slightly off. Now she's discontented because even though she's in the perfect concert with the perfect seats, it's not perfect enough for her expectation.
And by the way, while I don't know this person and I can't comment on this particular instance, for a lot of people, that is the MO that gets you into the front row. It's the ability to get unhappy real fast in a way that makes other people uncomfortable. For a lot of people, that is their primary form of power. My ability to get angry, my ability to be difficult to deal with, make you uncomfortable, make you squirm, So that guy, who's upset about the steak and the powder not being on there, maybe he was miserable, but maybe he was also flexing. And so for a lot of people, misery becomes a powerful negotiation tool. And I guess, hey, if that's your joy, that's your joy. But like we talked about earlier, man, I don't ever want to give up my peace of mind just to give somebody else a piece of my mind.
Oof.
Oh, that's so good, TK.
Yeah, don't hand me your misery and expect me to turn it into joy for you.
Yeah.
Yes.
I hope you enjoyed that highlight from the Minimalist Private Podcast. If you did and you'd like to dive deep into full episodes of the Private Podcast, head on over to Patreon. Just click the link down in the description. The Private Podcast keeps our YouTube channel 100% advertisement free because advertisements suck. But if you're not ready for that just yet, head on over to this video on our YouTube channel.